Welcome back. We are continuing with Going Native, written by Uncle Sealing.
Going Native, Chapter 12. Samuel woke up feeling utterly spent. He was lying on his stomach in a pile of pillows, naked, alone, and saw. A look up at one of the bookcases revealed a mechanical clock showing the time at 10:37, which told Samuel that it was somewhere between 10 and 11. One day he would fix that clock, but today was definitely not that day. Remembering their Shilvati guest, he rummaged through a dresser and came up with some long pajama pants and a soft cotton shirt. The pants showed his position in the ongoing ducky war. They were a pale red with dozens of tiny rubber ducks. The shirt was just a simple grey, but he figured it offset the red well. As the soft fabric of the pants pulled over his ass, he let out a pained hiss. Marin had got him good. Pulling the shirt over his chest was almost as bad. Sammy had left hickeys and bite marks all over his chest and neck, and any time he moved the shirt would slide across something they had marked. All in all, though, it wasn't even close to the worst he had been through. Samuel stretched and went down to find breakfast. What he found was Marin sitting at the kitchen table. She was looking at a datapad, its screen dark and webbed with cracks. The large indigo woman didn't move or seem to react at all as he came in. Well, he had figured this was coming. After some knocking around in the kitchen, Sam set a mug down in front of the Shilvati and moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders in an embrace. Marin started, coming out of her fugue to notice Samuel's arms wrapped around her.
It all caught up with you, huh?
I guess so.
Marin tried to collect her thoughts.
It was like, I don't know how to explain it.
Like you were outside of yourself.
Marin nodded.
When that interior bitch came to tell me that Ian was dead, I felt like I had lost everything. Then, well, I started digging. Then I met the two of you.
She turned her head so she could give Samuel a sad smile.
And it was like all that pain was just kind of pushed aside. I sort of forgot the whole reason I was here. It was like if I focused on the investigation and kept working on it and just sort of pretended that nothing was wrong, then Ian couldn't be dead and everything was really okay.
And then it all sort of hit at once, right? The dam burst on you.
The shining black and gold pools of Marin's eyes overflowed, tears slipping down her face.
I feel like I betrayed him by not taking this seriously. I shouldn't have been playing around yesterday, I should have been working and looking for answers.
No.
Marin snorted.
Of course you would say that, you're a human. The species of multiple orgasms and casual debauchery.
That's not what I meant. You shouldn't be pushing yourself full tilt 100% of the time. You need to be able to take breaks, to unwind so you can be fresh when you work at the problem again. It's not healthy to overtax yourself.
Samuel started to rub her arms and shoulders, using his thumbs to knead the muscles.
Especially when you're dealing with trauma, you can end up pinballing from one extreme to the other.
Pinballing.
Pinball is a type of mechanical game. You use little flippers to bounce a steel ball against various obstacles that give you points. The obstacles are loaded with solenoids to kick the ball. It doesn't matter.
Marin pulled in a deep, ragged breath, then released it as a sigh.
So what do I do?
You take it a little at a time. Talk it out with your friends, try to take care of yourself, and remember that it's okay to hurt.
Marin sat silent for a moment, then picked up the mug and took a sip. The sputtering cough she released made Samuel chuckle as he patted her back. It tasted like meat.
Are you trying to poison me or something?
Sam grabbed the mug and took a sip himself, then put it back on the table.
Nope, tastes exactly like I would expect Bovril to taste like.
What in the name of the goddess is Bovril?
Now that she wasn't choking in sheer confusion, she could take another sip and actually try to figure out the flavor. It tasted like a strong broth, heavily salted and with a little bit of sweetness. Marin could see it growing on her if she hadn't been surprised into panic by it.
It's an extract of beef and yet. You know what? It's salty beef goo. You can put it on toast or you can put it in hot water and make a drink.
Marin turned to stare at Samuel.
And why did you give me a mug of beef goo?
Samuel shrugged.
I did some secret squirrel work in the UK for a while, got a taste for it. For some reason it always seems to make me feel better when I'm stressed out.
Marin took another sip, then slid it away.
I think hot chocolate is more my style.
Speaking of style.
The high, clear voice of Sammy came from behind Samuel and the crack of a slap, followed by Samuel's yelp told Marin that apparently she had managed to leave a mark the previous night. Sammy will admit, they had a bit of an eavesdropping problem. Well, not a problem. It was more of a skill. They were good at being quiet and listening. Once the heavy part of Sam and Marin's conversation was done, they figured it was time to make their presence known. Samuel's cry from the quick spank on an already sore tush was a great way to get everyone's attention.
While you two nerds were busy gossiping, I thought I would let you know that we're ready.
Samuel looked incredulous.
Ready for what?
For the station. While you were sleeping in, some of us got up bright and early to get real work done. The telescope retrofit is done and I even have the new hard drives mounted and formatting.
They made to give Samuel a pinch but he sidestepped, putting the table between them.
That's fantastic. Now we just have to pray for good weather.
Sammy looked down at Marin, who seemed to be sliding back into despair. They had to do something.
I have an idea.
Marin turned to look at Sammy, then at Samuel.
I really don't think I am up for another round right now.
Samuel shrugged.
I'm always good, but I agree that this doesn't feel like the right moment.
Sammy let out a theatrical sigh.
No, you degenerates. A different idea. We're going to make cookies, and while we do that, Maureen is going to tell the story of how she and Ian met.
At first it didn't seem like she would go for it, but after a few moments of silence Marin smiled sadly and started to speak. She was going to be late, she knew it. Marin had been up late studying and overslept. At least, that was the excuse she was giving herself. The fact that she didn't start studying until after a few hours of video games probably played into it somehow, but she was trying not to think about that. Right now, she just needed to get to class. At 19, Marin was tall, but slender, with the pale nearly-pink skin of someone who spent too much time indoors. She hadn't quite grown out of her gangly youth phase, and tended to dress in baggy clothes to hide what she considered an underdeveloped chest. Couple that with a shoulder bag full of notes and an awkward run through the corridors of the academy and she was the picture of nerd in a hurry. Eschewing waiting for the elevator, Marin pulled open the door to the staircase and stopped dead. The large woman had cornered a boy, the same boy Marin recognized from her intro to analytics class. He was clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but he couldn't do much about it while trapped in the stairwell.
I said no. Now please let me go, I'm late for class.
Marin could see the fear in his eyes, but to his credit he wasn't cowering. The woman grabbed the young man by the shoulders, his pale lilac skin darkening as he panicked. He tried to push away, but the woman held him tight and laughed. She seemed to enjoy his struggling, the young man looking around for some way to break free, something to help. His eyes locked with Marin's, the pleading clear. He was terrified. Marin didn't want to get involved, it would only mean trouble for her later, but she had to. What would her family say? What would her brother think? Marin wasn't the type of person to act on instinct, but her mothers had trained her well. She stepped up behind the large woman. Left arm around the throat, catching the neck in the crook of her elbow. Lock the left hand to her right bicep. Right hand behind their head and to her own left shoulder. Lean back, apply pressure. Squeeze. Totally unprepared for the sleeper hold, it only took a few seconds for the woman to start to black out from a lack of blood to the brain. Marin held it for another 5 count, then let go, watching in satisfaction as the woman slumped to the floor in a heap.
Is she dead?
The look of panic on the boy's face hadn't lessened, and he backed away from Marin as best he could. Trying to act calm herself, Marin crouched down and put the back of her hand in front of the woman's face. She could feel the potential rapist's hot breath, and it made her feel dirty. Wiping her hand on her pant leg, Marin stood back up.
Nope, just out. She's going to have a hell of a headache when she wakes up though.
Her headache prediction turned into a virtual certainty as the boy stepped up and gave the woman a full-force kick to the teeth, turning his foot at just the right moment to avoid the pointed tusks.
Whoa whoa whoa!
Marin stepped between the two.
Don't kill her!
The boy took his leg, pulled back for another kick, and almost sulkily stomped it down.
Bitch has been following me and making comments for weeks. I thought she might try something, but nobody believed me when I warned the administrators about it.
He finally seemed to switch his attention to Marin.
Thank you.
Marin gave a weak smile, looking at the attempted rapist unconscious on the floor breathing through broken teeth.
Happy to help, I guess.
The boy grabbed Marin's hand and started pulling her up the stairs. It was the first time a boy who wasn't family had so much as touched her, and for a moment she just seemed frozen in place.
Come on, we'll be late for class. Mary, right? Marin.
Her smile turned into a grin. The boy, almost, knew her name.
And you're, Ian, of course.
His blush as he led her up the stairs was beautiful.
You saved him. How romantic.
Sammy's excited squeal and dance was hampered by the whisking they were doing, but not by much. Samuel had another, less obvious question.
Why did you know how to do a rear naked choke?
Marin flushed blue and Sam held his hands up.
Don't get me wrong, it's awesome, but even though I know you're military, you seem about as dangerous as a big purple bunny.
Marin smirked at him.
I'm not sure what a bunny is, but it sounds like you're asking for another spanking.
Samuel took a couple steps back, keeping his hands up.
Let's not, please. I'm going to have a terminal case of butt fall off syndrome if the two of you don't give me at least an occasional break.
Of course, his focus on Marin opened him up to a flanking attack, a flick of a kitchen towel from Sammy. He let out an emasculating squeak of surprised pain, then turned to glare at Sammy. Which, of course, distracted him while Marin closed the distance. Samuel felt the long-fingered hand caress his scalp for just a moment before it clenched, grabbing a handful of hair and pulling him backwards into Marin's chest. He hoped his yelp was at least a little more manly than his squeak had been. As Marin held him tight against her with one arm, the other released his hair and scratched gently at his scalp, fingers occasionally sliding down the side of his neck or along the helix of veneer.
Sammy, I have to say I like your husband. Once we find Ian, you should join up with us. He'll love you and we can keep Samuel here as a pet.
Do I get a say in this?
Hush.
Marin said, accompanying her words with a gentle slap on the cheek.
Pets don't talk.
She went back to playing her fingers along his scalp and he let out a quiet hum of pleasure, eyes starting to slide shut as he focused on the sensation. The idea did have a certain appeal.
Sure, sounds good.
Samuel's eyes flicked open so he could give Sammy a mock glare.
Oh, don't look at me like that. You know you'd love it and it's not like we have much else going on.
A beep from the oven drew everyone's attention, and Samuel took the opening to lean his head back, using Marin's chest as a pillow as he glanced up at her.
So? Where did you learn that?
Marin was in a daze all through class. She wanted to turn and stare at Ieng. He talked to her. The cutest boy she had ever seen actually spoke to her of all people. Of course, she knew that didn't mean anything. Intellectually, at least. Her brain kept trying to make it more than it was. She helped him in a bad situation, and that was the end of it. He didn't owe her anything, she just did what she was supposed to do.
Hey, Marin.
She flinched out of her daze and looked up. Class was over, everyone was leaving, and there was Ieng, standing in front of her desk.
Huh? Oh, hi.
Now that there wasn't a crisis, she felt as awkward as ever. Marin felt like she was shrinking in her seat as the other girls still in the room glared at her for daring to talk to the cute boy.
I was just wondering if you would like to get some lunch with me. I'll treat.
She started to decline, more out of shock than anything else.
No, I should repay you somehow. You really saved me back there.
Ah, there it was. Just a transaction, balancing the scales. Now it made a little more sense why he would bother with her. The walk to the diner was quiet, both seeming alone in their thoughts until Ieng broke the silence with a question.
So where did you learn to do that? Pardon me for saying so, but you don't seem like the type who gets into fights.
Marin tried to talk, but couldn't get the words out. After a quick swallow, she managed to squeak out.
I have a younger brother.
Ieng tilted his head at her, so she continued.
My dad and one of my moms met in the military. When my brother was born, Mom decided that we needed to know how to fight so we could protect him. I never really took to it.
Marin shrugged.
But it's pretty easy when they don't know you're there.
His laughter was musical as he took her hand, tugging her along. Conversation during their meal came fast and easy. As Marin warmed up and started asking questions, she managed to learn more about her new potential friend. His family was a minor merchant house and he decided to pursue a secondary education not because he really needed to, but because it interested him. His parents were big proponents of education and were willing to finance his schooling as long as he kept his grades up and didn't spend too much time partying. Ieng's focus was on mathematics, but he wasn't sure where he wanted to take it yet. He just enjoyed learning. He also seemed genuinely interested in her own goals, particularly her decision to join the military after she was done getting her certifications. When it was finally time to pay the bill, Marin took it and used her credit chit before he could reach over and take it.
I said I was going to treat. I know, but if my family learned I let a cute guy pay for my meal I'd be sleeping in the yard.
He blushed a pretty shade of blue at her compliment.
Well, okay, but I'm paying for the next one.
End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube stuff, visit and support the author, and I'll see you next time. If you didn't enjoy, comment on what I can do better. And as usual, have a wonderful day.